Because, all right, y'all, so sorry for the delay. Let's get started, okay? We're getting a good bit of questions here about what's on these exams, right? Also, what takes qualifications to be on the exams. So right now in this session, we're only going to talk about the CHST exam. So we're going to talk about test and methodologies. We're going to talk about what is required to qualify for the exam, in addition to testing tips as well, okay? So here you go. We're going to be talking about the BCSP CHST exam, the application. We're going to talk about fees, how to recertify. We're going to talk about the exam blueprint, also passing scores, the content to study, test taking tips, and then debunked a couple of rumors too, okay? So any of you all that are on there right now, tell me some of the rumors. What have you heard about the BCSP exams, whether it's a CHST exam or any other exam? Tell me anything you've heard, good, bad, or indifferent.
I haven't heard anything.
Okay. All right, Mike, I'm sorry, man. I think we're having problems hearing you again, okay? So let's go ahead and go through it. So this is, first of all, let's talk about the application process because there's a lot of questions here. You apply through the BCSP's website. It's bcsp.org, right? If you go there, Carlos, there's a page called the At-A-Glance credentials page, and it's got all of this information. So this is a cut and paste from their website. This is the information as recent as today, okay? So what happens here, Bruce, is that there's no minimum education. There used to be a GED or a high school requirement, and that was removed. I think it was removed because there's a lot of international testing going on now, and I think that it removed the barriers for people from other countries that may, or even in this country, right, that may have problems getting their educational records and accessing them. So it removed that barrier from the system, okay? What happens is you have to have, this is an experience only. So what the experience is, and I want to read it and then I want to break it down, okay? So it's 3 years of experience in construction, safety, and health environment. So we're at 35% minimum, right, of our duties require technical skill and knowledge in safety, health, and environment. Now, what am I talking about? First of all, everybody on the line right now, I know is already experienced because I know either all of you or most of them. However, I've gotten a lot of questions where somebody says, I'm a fire watch, right? Or I'm a confined space attendant, or I'm a millwright, or I am a boilermaker. Can I take this exam? And my opinion is, as long as 35% of your job is health, safety, and environmental related, I think so. So what do I mean? Hey, every day we're all conducting hazard assessments, right? We're doing JSAs, TSAs, hot work permits, confined space permits, inspections of tools, equipment, materials, right? Chemical, safety data sheets. In my opinion, that's all health, safety, and environmental related. So as far as I'm concerned, yes, most people qualify because I think that most of our jobs are far exceed 35% of health, safety, and environmental duties. I venture to say 75 to 100%, because what job out there, Mike, right, can't we do that's either safe, healthy, or environmentally aware, right? So what happens is the BCSP charges $140 application fee. If you're a military veteran and you have your DD 214, contact them. I know that they used to waive the application fee. The BCSP used to waive the application fee. I don't know if that's still the fact. Go ahead and reach out to them.
They don't.
All right. Once you're approved, it usually takes from my understanding, it was taking 2 to 3 weeks to get approved. Y'all know how I feel. Communication and coordination is key. So stay in touch with them, right, if necessary, to try to find out where you are along the process. So once approved, and then you pay the examination fee. The exam fee is $300 for the BCSP. Some people are under the impression that it's $350, but it's not. It's $300 for the CHST. It's $350 for the ASP, CSP, and the SMS exams. You can either do one of two things. Either buy the exam for $300, or you can buy the exam bundle for $550. That means you're buying 2 exams instead of 1, just in case you fail the first. And you're buying 100 questions that are their self-assessment questions, which are multiple choice questions. They'll give you the questions. They'll give you the answers. Okay. I'm going to tell you my position on it. I think that the 100 questions is a good purchase. I don't know about buying 2 tests. I don't know about y'all. I don't plan on failing when I take an exam, right? It's almost like I compare it to blackjack, Mike. It is, when that dealer's showing that ace or that king, right? And do you want to put 50% down to insure your money? And that's what I look at. So if you pass on the first get-go, you left that $150 on the table. if you were to fail, yes, it will cost you that 150 plus an additional 150. So it's a risk, y'all. You know, just we're in the risk management business, right? It's a risk, and it's a risk calculation that you have to decide. We can always talk about it after hours, and I'll give you a little bit more of my perspective if you want. Okay. You have 1 year to take your exam from the time you're approved. If you don't take that exam within a year, you have to pay $100 extension fee in order to run over an extra year to be able to test or successfully test. Okay. If you don't, just start at the application process again, $140. Okay. All right. So now how long, I'm over here on the right now. How long is the exam? The exam is 4 hours long. Most people, they take 2.5 to 3.5 hours to take the exam. Don't cheat yourself. 4 hours are there. Take it if you need it. Okay. Passing score. Passing score currently, it's 102 out of 175. This is as of today. So let me clarify this. When you go in, you will have 200 questions on the exam. So you will be tested on 200 questions, but 25 questions are exploratory questions. They may be simple, Carlos. They may be hard. They may be easy, Rafael, okay? And we don't know. And it's probably a combination of all of it. So what winds up happening is you will wind up having 175 questions randomly throughout the 200 questions that you're graded on, 25 that you're not. It does. Some people think they're getting cheated and that they're not. They're exploratory questions. It's a 200 question test, but only 175 are graded. The other 25, you could fail them all and it won't affect your grade. You could pass them all, won't affect your grade. And that is how the BCSP gets the data that they need to determine. That's how the BCSP gets the data to determine how difficult the questions are, whether it's subject matter or understanding or application. Okay? Now, let's do this. Let me grab a calculator, right? Because I don't want to do it straight off the top of my head. Any math that you have on the exam, use the calculator. Okay, there's a built-in calculator. It's a TI 30XS calculator. It's built in. Use that calculator. Okay, 102 divided by the 175 that are graded, you need a 58.28% to pass. So less than a 60% grade to pass and become a CHST. And I'll tell you this is from what my understanding, and I have no data to back this up on. This is just my understanding from talking with various persons that have either been contacted the BSP, conversations I've had with the BCSP. A lot of people that call me, I'm assuming that it's close to about 2/3 or a little bit less that actually passed the exam on the first get-go. Okay, if I had to put it somewhere, I'm going to put it between the 55 and 65% on the first attempt, somebody going in to take the exam, okay, as far as their numbers. And like I said, that's just my estimation. So that's it. Other than that, once you become a BCSP, and this is something you want to know for the exam, what will happen is when you renew annually, your fee as of now will be $145. So to take the exam is to apply is $140 and take the exam. If you pass it on the first get-go, you have a $440 investment. Okay. If you pass it on the first get-go, if not, you're spending an extra $300 every time you test. That's without doing some type of prep course. Now, once you become a CHST, your fees will be prorated for the first year. They always end December 31st. They're payable by the end of the year, or January 1st, rather. After that, late fees start to accrue. Okay? And I think you only have like 2 or 3 months before you actually lose your credential. But your renewal fee without a late fee currently is $145. Keep tabs on this At-A-Glance page because you will see the testing score change. And this fee used to be $140, so it went up $5. Okay? So always keep tabs on the At-A-Glance page. Okay? Now, also, you need recertification points. I'm not getting into that today. What that is that's continuing education units. So that could be additional training in health, safety, environmental, some type of professional development that relates to our field. It might be attending conferences. It might be writing a white paper for an article for some type of health and safety publication or magazine, delivering presentations. And I think, and I'm not certain about this, I don't recall if they give certain credit for professional experience, but you can believe you're going to have continued education, and we should. We shouldn't just get one credential and stay there. We should be moving on, okay, and continuing forward. So that is in a nutshell what the course itself for the BCSP. Okay. So now let's move on to the next slide. So as far as we're concerned, this is the content. Mike, I know you with your bachelor's and your master's, you qualify all the way up to the CHST, the SMS, which are both non-bachelor degree programs. Okay. And then also the ASP and CSP. Okay. I'm going to tell you this, Mike, and I'm going to talk to you about this because, and anybody else that's on the line that's got a bachelor's or a master's, because everybody in this content, as far as I'm concerned, that for the CHST exam, you have to know about 80 to 85, maybe even 90% of what an ASP or CSP testing person needs to know. Okay? So it's a very, very rigorous exam. There's a lot of there, it is a testing verification of our knowledge and our skills and application. Okay. This is the content that we feel is most relative. So do this, right? Think about this. How many times have y'all heard math? The math is a beast, right? The math is killer. I'm going to tell you all this, Carlos and Rafael, don't sweat the math. All right. You're going to hear me say it over and over and over again. Don't sweat the math. At most, let's say even out of 200 questions, let's say you have 15 or 20 questions that are math, but you won't. You'll probably have a handful or so. Okay. But let's say, let's say, Bruce, that you have 200 questions and let's say a handful, 5 or 6 questions are math. That's 2.5 to 3% of the exam. Or let's say that you have 20 questions that are math that would be simply outrageous. I don't even know if you'd have enough time to answer the 20 questions plus the other 180 questions. You're talking about 10% of the exam. So, Mike, that's why I say don't sweat the math. So many people in the past that I know, they keep on trying to learn chemicals and they're trying to keep on learning math. Okay? And there's a lot of chemical in there and there's some math. But I tell everybody, learn the fundamentals and the application before you even learn the content. Okay? That's what's important. And that's what I'm going to mention in this session today is the fundamentals and the application of those fundamentals even more than the content. Okay? So now, what is the content, right? In our opinion, this is where most of it is. Now, we're adding some more line items, but this is where the majority of it comes from. Battery composition and hazards. Subject matter related to NFPA, fire protection and prevention. Chemical hazards, talking about chemicals that inert oxygen, right? Like chemicals like argon or nitrogen, talking about flammable or explosive chemicals, and then toxic chemicals as well. Also biological hazards. There's a significant amount of biological hazards on here. Hexchrome, metal fume fever, copper fever, right? And I don't know that remember that it's called copper fever, but welding on metals, right? Magnesium, okay? Beryllium, cadmium. Also, in addition to that, there's also a lot of illnesses, like think about things like E. coli or bisonosis, okay, or histoplasmosis. So these are all different illnesses that come. We've got some other videos on our YouTube channel, and there's some snippets of some of our older training, and it's got some of that information in there. Okay? Also, permit required confined space. Trenching and excavation. We've seen that there's a significant uptick in trenching and excavation and crane and rigging on this exam. So trenching and excavation, think about things like footages, right? Like at 4 foot, you need to do atmospheric testing, and you have to have egress, right? At 5 feet, you have to have a protective system. 20 feet, registered professional engineer. But it is well beyond that. Okay? Also, crane and rigging. It could be load charts, right? Knowing certain parts of the crane, the load moment indicator on the crane. Also knowing some of your safety features or inspection intervals that you need for a crane. Also rigging composition, different types of rigging, different hitch selections on whether it's like a basket, a vertical, or a basket vertical, or a bridle. Okay? So, depending on what type of hitch you're going to have, or a choker, on your rigging. Also, HAZWOPER. You have to know HAZWOPER. You have to know EPA, talking about things like the Clean Water Act, the Clean Air Act, stormwater drainage. Okay, so think about contaminants from a work site that we don't want going into the drain water. Okay, OSHA record keeping. Now, I've seen less, or at least I believe that there's less OSHA record keeping on it now, but certain things like what is a recordable, what's not a recordable, how to calculate your total recordable incident rate, or how to calculate your DART rate, right? Your days away and restricted and transferred rate. Also, the OSHA the multi-employer citation, knowing who is the controlling employer, like the prime or the general, the exposing employer, the creating employer who created the hazard, the exposing employer, all employers who allowed their employees to work in that area at that time with the hazard existed, and then the correcting employer, whoever corrected the hazard. Okay? Also, OSHA PSM, Process Safety Management. If you don't know much about OSHA PSM, Google OSHA PSM fact sheet. There's a really good OSHA fact sheet on process safety management. If you want to go to the standard, you can. Mike, especially for the ASP and CSP, we'll talk about this in the next session. You have to know 1910-119, which is the OSHA PSM standard. Okay? And then right behind OSHA 10-119, what is there? It's 1920, right? HAZWOPER. So they go hand in hand. Also, if you notice, that's about the only OSHA that I'm talking about, and fall protection, which are the biggest ones that are on there. Okay? So fall protection should also be on this list. On the right-hand side, you'll see that there are many consensus standards, right? You need to know the framework, or you need to know the basic fundamentals, let's call it, of the ANSI Z10, which is Occupational Safety Health Management Standard. You'll see a significant amount of ANSI and ISO reference standards, okay? Those are the frameworks that we're often following now internationally. And the U.S. is actively participating in this. So, so ANSI, American National Standards Institute, right? So ANSI Z10 for OSHA management, ANSI Z490 for Occupational Safety and Health Training Standard. But you'll see that there's an OSHA publication, I'm about to show it to you, that you don't have to pay for, that you can access most of the same information, right? Also, ANSI 590, which is the criteria for safety positions. So basically, think about job descriptions for the type of positions that we have and the duties that we have. So these are all standards that many of us don't even realize they're out there. And then, of course, things like the ANSI 359 standard for fall protection, Z87 for eye and face protection, 89 for head, 41 for foot and toes, as well as the ASTM standard. So these are all different standards, okay? I'll show you where you can find a little bit more of this information. Also, you need to know significantly more, especially ASP and CSP personnel, of the ISO standards, namely 14,001, the environmental standard. You're also going to have to know, it's not on here, ISO 9000 and 9001 for quality, 45,001 for occupational health and safety risk management, and then psychosocial risk management, 45,003. Okay, you're probably starting to see more and more of that now, okay, of the 45,003 standard. A lot of times, Google, right? Facebook, LinkedIn, especially LinkedIn, I'm finding more and more articles, the ASSP website and American Society of Safety Professionals, or the National Safety Council, okay? I'm finding more and more information, or conferences. If you attend conferences, it's a really good place to get some of this information as well. And then you have to know the FEMA Incident Command org chart, all the positions and what the duties and responsibilities are. I'll show you where the org chart is right now. Also, as far as hazardous communications, you have to know the 16 sections of your HAZCOM safety data sheet. You must know also the 9 pictograms and also the label instructions, okay? So that, for us, often it's low-hanging fruit because many of us get trained on it annually, even though that's not the federal requirement, right? It's before using any chemicals at all, being assigned to that duty, anytime the chemicals change or anytime the employer realizes that we're not meeting the standard, right? But most companies best practice and do HAZCOM training annually. Also, you're going to see me at Raphael, you're going to see me spend a lot of time right now on OSHA Safety Management System. I think, Carlos, the SMS, I think I sent you this booklet a while back. The SMS booklet, it's a 28-page booklet. It is, as far as I'm concerned, it is our beacon light for where we need to get to with this industry, okay? Whether it's professionally or whether it's this exam, those 28 pages, if you know them front and back, you are pretty much going to be able to apply most methodologies to this exam, whether you know the content or not, okay? So what happens, Mike, is put your hands out, right? You have to know 2 things, right? You have to know content, and you have to know application, okay? But what happens is this: if you know content, but you don't know application, you may pick the distracting answer out of the 4, okay? If you know content and you know application, you're in really good shape. However, if you don't know content as well, let's say for radiation, right? Or let's say for, for a certain chemical, right? A toxic hazard for a certain chemical, but you know application, it's going to help you significantly because you follow the same model for application. And I'm going to show you all that on a slide that we have, that I'm sharing with you. Also, OSHA training recommendations. These OSHA training recommendations are basically modeled off of this ANSI 490 standard. That's what I was talking about. And then you have to know some ergonomic. Now, I tell people this, can't catch all the fish. All right, imagine going fishing. I don't even fish, but I know this, okay? Is that I'm not going to go where somebody told me they saw a fish or another fish or two fish, right? I'm going to go where somebody tells me they saw a school of fish, right? They saw a school of fish feeding, and that's where I want to go, okay? So one of the things, so two of the big myths are this for me, is math. Everybody keep on tricking themselves in math, right? Actually, I'll give you three. People think I'm going to do practice question as long as I can. And then when I'm learning them, I'm going to go test. And many times all you do is memorize those practice questions. Okay. And then third of all is don't try to answer every question. You have to go to where you know, and you have to go to the majority. Okay. So remember what I said, right? It is content and it is application, right? It's framework, it's standardization, and it's application. This is it right here. This is these 3 or 4 documents that I'm showing you right now. Y'all, I think everybody on the line knows, and some of you are even in our prep classes already, but here you go. I'm sharing our fundamental documents for all BCSP prep courses. But not only is it our fundamental documents for the BCSP prep courses, because forget it, I don't really care about the BCSP exam. I know that we have students that come in, right? I know a lot of y'all that even aren't our students that call me and I answer questions. I don't really care, because this is the way I look at it. If we follow these practices, these standards, and this framework, right, to be able to better apply ourselves in the workplace, help protect employees, and interview well and do our job well, these tests should automatically come. Okay, even if you stumble once, even if you stumble twice, right? These exams should come. Okay, so here you go. So this is our fundamental play sheets that we use now. How many times do we throw around the term competent person versus qualified person, right? And there's a lot of opinion here. The ANSI, like the ANSI Fall Protection Standards, they tweak it out a little bit more than OSHA does. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, they tweak it out a little bit more than OSHA does. But for this exam, I'm going to tell you to stick to the fundamental definition that OSHA's provided us. And this is what it is. Competent person is a person that's capable of identifying an existing or predictable hazard. And they have the prompt authorization to take a corrective action. Now, what I mean by that is this, right? What I mean by that is that don't, I want to make sure I say this right. Think about a subject matter expert, right? Oftentimes in this industry, Bruce, we think we have to be memorization experts, and we can't memorize it all, man. We have to be generalists, right? We have to know health, safety, environmental, DOT, and whatever else, right? So quality, everything. So what I tell people is this: we're not memorization experts. We should be subject matter experts, okay? So this is what I'm talking about right here, is competent person, right? What do I want to know about competent person? Okay, well, I have to be able to identify existing predictable hazard. I have to take the prompt corrective action. Now, here's the thing, Bruce. The term is predictable, right? Existing and predictable. Existing's easy. It's in front of us. How is it predictable, and Mike, and not potential? There's a big difference between potential and predictable. Potential is it might happen, right? Predictable, it's likely to happen. So if you go back here, all of these standards, everything that we're talking about here, and all these standard practices, right? All these consensus groups, government groups, manufacturers, they've warned against it. When they put it into a written document, right? They put it into an instruction, or they put it into a how-to, right? Or a warning or a white paper. That's how we know it's a predictable hazard, because they've basically told us, hey, we're warning you, this might happen. Okay, so that's why I tell everybody to make sure that you go to predictable. Okay, it's warning labels, instructions, manufacturer specs, standards, government, everyone. Okay, Bruce, I saw your message about that they don't waive veteran fees anymore. So anybody, I would still check with them. You never know if that's subject to change again. So Bruce, but thank you, man. That's a good heads up, man. I was not aware of that. So thank you. Okay. So anyhow, let me go back to this. I apologize. Right. So competent person, think about now, when you hear competent person, think supervisor, think employer, period. Right. Think project manager, frontline supervisor. Those are all synonyms. And I'll show you that in a second. Now, a qualified person, everybody must be qualified right here to their level. If I have somebody that their only job, it's a brand new hire, and their only job is just to go for, right? Go get 2x4s, go get equipment, go get a grinder, sweep the grounds, right? And many of us have had those jobs. And that is a qualified to that level. It might be qualified to that level. It might be qualified to do a confined space entry, right? Through training, education, or a knowledge, or it might even be some type of recognized degree, like a registered professional engineer, to build a scaffold over 125 feet in metal, or to put a excavation protective system in that is deeper than 20 feet. Okay, so all of that is a perfect example of qualifiedness. Okay, all right. So now let me go ahead and keep on going here. So here is one of the resources. I'm sorry, let me go back to this one thing. So here I have competent versus qualified. You have to know this definition day in and day out. And if you think about qualified, each employee is qualified to their level of work. I work with lasers, I gotta be qualified for lasers. I work with a shovel, I gotta be qualified to a shovel, okay? Competency normally comes in operators, like heavy equipment operators. It comes in supervision normally as well, okay? Now on the right-hand side, we always say this, y'all. We always say eliminate engineering, admin, PPE, engineering, admin, PPE, right? We repeat it over and over and over again. Mike, you want to do a little quiz? Go to your job site, right? And grab a bunch of HSE professionals tomorrow morning in a meeting or on a Zoom and say, name 5 or 10 administrative controls. We always stumble. Okay, we're so used to saying engineer and admin, PPE, but we really concentrate on engineering and PPE. With this exam, yes, concentrate on engineering and concentrate on admin. Okay, so let me give you a perfect example. I want you to think about this in your head right now. Okay, how do I prevent an employee from being hurt from a fall or dying? Okay, most of you in your head right now probably thought some type of personal fall arrest, anchor, body harness, some kind of decelerator like a yo-yo or a lanyard, right? A connector or decelerator. That's what we think. We all know it's the last line of defense, but when I ask that question, and even I that know better, right, I still go to personal fall arrest first. No, the first thing is don't let him get up top, Mike. That way, it is an elimination. Okay, so we eliminate the hazard. Nobody's going up top, but that's not always a possibility, right? Or put up a solid wall instead of a guardrail, right? That's an elimination, right? You can't fall out of a hallway, right? Or substitute. Now, what do? Now you might be substituting personnel. You might be substituting your personnel for our subcontractors' personnel, or let's use maybe a hazardous chemical. Eliminate all asbestos, right? That's elimination. Okay, that's fine. But we need thermal insulation. We need fire retardation, right? We need thermal control. We need to grab sweat from pipes, right? Or other type of equipment or machinery or vessels that are sweating. So what happens? We substitute. How do we substitute? With fiberglass or open cell or closed cell or cellulose insulation. Okay. Now, when you cannot eliminate and you cannot substitute, then you control it. How do you control it? Engineering that we all know. Build walls, sound barriers, mufflers, dampers, right? Some type of buffers, guardrails, okay, guards or guardrails, all right, or even using a heavy piece of equipment. I'm going to show you a couple of examples in a second. Then administrative. Now, get used to these terms. And this goes for professionally, and this also goes for testing purposes, right? These are all admin controls, but we take it for granted. Anything that starts with a P other than PPE pretty much, right? Policies, procedures, programs, permits, permissions, procedures, processes, okay? Also manufacturer specifications and manuals, training, coaching, discipline, right? Supervision, behavioral-based observation, work authorizations, right? I said permits and permissions, warnings, warning labels, right? Signage, work rest cycles. Think about heat stress right now, right? We're putting our employees in a lot of work rest cycles. Also body positioning. Think about upwind, downwind, right? Body mechanics for ergonomics, and then stop work authority. And look, Raphael, I know I didn't get them all, but it's a significant amount of them. It's probably the most common ones that we see. And then last line of defense, we all know PPE. Okay, so let me tell you how this might frame up, right? Let me give you an example. And I'm going to talk about this on the tips as well. One thing we need to remember is this: when you talk about engineering and PPE, money is no object at all. If you can rent an excavator to do a job, right? Excuse me. If you need to do a job, rent an excavator. Don't have humans do it by hand. Okay. If you need to do a lift, get a crane. Don't go do it manually, climbing it upstairs. Okay. If you need to move concrete bags, I'm going to show you some examples in a second when we're talking about another slide. You need to move concrete bags, go buy or rent a forklift. Don't let employees carry them by hand or shoulder or share the load. Okay. And I'll show you when we get to the next slide what I'm talking about. Now, these are the resources, Carlos. So primarily this play sheet right here. Okay. This is our primary play sheet now. Also, go online, find this. I'm also going to put in the next day or two, Michael, I'm going to put all these resources on our website, and it's also going to be on the YouTube channel that we have for this video. I'll put all the links in the comment section. Okay, so that you guys can download it. Okay. Plus, we're putting them all in a Dropbox. So anybody that's on the line, I'm going to Dropbox them to you so that you have them. Okay. Anybody who's already in our prep course, you guys already have it. Okay. This is the resource for development of delivery of training for workers. This is adult learning. You're hearing it more and more in litigation, right? What qualified, because they're using the word qualified, right? What qualified your trainer or your safety person or your frontline supervisor to train adults in the workplace, okay, or to train children, okay? But this document right here, it's built off the ANSI 490 standard, and the terms you'll hear, the three biggest terms you'll hear, and I wish I would have put them on the side, which is ADDIE for do a gap analysis, right? Design, develop, implement, and then evaluate your training. So it's called the ADDIE model. Also, make all your training smart. Make it specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. And then ABCD, consider your ABCDs, which is who's your audience? What behavior do you want your audience to exhibit? Under what conditions and to what degree? All right. So I'll put that in the comments as well, since I missed it on here. And I'll probably try to do it before we do the 2:30 session for the I'll probably try to add it to the 2:30 session for the CSP and ASP. Also, this document right here, when I say SMS, Safety Management System, this is what I'm talking about, y'all. I'm talking about, this is a publication by OSHA. They've got 2 or 3 different versions of it for healthcare, for general services. Okay, I don't think I saw one for construction. This is the OSHA Safety and Health Management Guidelines. How many times have you heard in your organization, right? We're talking about a safety management system or an SMS. This is it. Okay, Mike, you're going to hear me say this about the ANSI, ISO, OSHA standards. You and I have had these discussions, and you feel the same way. They're the framework for the work that we do, right? Companies are, all of y'all on this line right now, everybody comes from different size companies and in different industries, okay? So what happens, you have to build a framework so that all size employers in all industries have something to work with to build their specific standard for their organization and for each site. Okay, and for the craft, for each craft that you're doing. Okay? Now, what happens with this, and this is a key word you want to remember right here. Make sure you make a mental note of this, right? They're called 7 core elements. They're not top priorities. Okay, they're not key items, they're core elements. You can believe that you're probably going to see numerous questions. I'd say at least directly 5, 10, or 15 questions on safety management systems on the exam. And you'll probably see another 20, 30, 40 questions that by having this foundation down will help you better answer hazard awareness questions, whether it comes to chemicals, biological, radiological, fire, the crafts like or say OSHA standards like falls, excavations, confined space. But this is it, Mike. This is a principal document. We use this for everything now. I get people going to do a job interview. I'm like, and we're going to do a video on this too, right? And we're going to do another session on the STAR behavioral interview. Okay, how to answer questions in a STAR behavioral interview, especially related to health and safety. Okay, occupational safety and health. But this is our core document for everything. You go to where you're working now. Look at it and see if y'all have implemented all this. I'm assuming you guys have because of the nature of y'all's work, okay, and the employers, right? Also, in addition to that, any new job that anybody has, apply this. Any interview you have, apply this. The BCSP exams, all BCSP exams, apply this. There's 7 core principles. I'm not going to get into all the fine print. I'm sending you the document. Okay. And we're going to do a 1 hour on this, which is going to be an overview. But I'm going to tell you this. We spend about anywhere from 4 to 6 to 8 hours training this 128-page document. And sometimes we've gone multiple days on it. Okay. So, but on our BCSP prep, I think we spent 4 hours on it, and that's because we're pushing it. Okay. Now, here they are. Here are the 7 core elements. You have to have management and leadership, right? You have to have worker participation. You have to have hazard identification and assess them, right? Quantify that risk. Now you have to either prevent, like eliminate or substitute that hazard, or control it. So it's always prevent. How do you prevent? Through either elimination or substitution, and then you control through engineering, admin, PPE. Okay. Education and training. Program evaluation and improvement. What are they talking about here? They're going to be talking about accident investigations, root cause analysis, inspections, audits, behavioral observations, okay, intervention, coaching. Okay, that's what we're talking about. And then the last one here, Mike, when you guys get this document and you download it, I'm going to make a recommendation. I might even take it off, which is, it says communication and coordination on multi-employer work sites. Forget multi-employer work sites. Communication and coordination on all work sites, regardless of what the employer, who the employer is. Okay, all employees, general and prime contractors, contractors, subcontractors, and even temporary employees. Everyone must be protected to the same level of degree. Okay, so forget that it even says, Raphael, that it even says multi-employer work site. Okay, Bruce, like I said, look at the bottom, right? It's a framework for safety, and it can scale up or down to all size companies in all industries. And what are these elements called? They're the core elements. What is the number one element? Think about the top dog, the CEO of any company. That person is the main person responsible for this whole program. It either fails underneath the CEO's direction, right? Or it succeeds under everyone's participation. Okay, management owns the failures, right? The workforce gets the successes, or at least that's the way it should be. Okay. You also have to know incident organizational chart. This is, if anybody needs it, like I said, this link's going to be in there. It's about a 12-page document. I'm only showing you the chart. Okay. This chart talks about all of these different positions. It talks about the incident commander, who is the number one person in this organization. 7 people, it's called their command staff. Okay. And his officers. And this is what happens, is that this incident commander has 4 chiefs. The 4 chiefs are planning chief, operations chief, logistics, and finance. Those are the 4 divisions, or the 4 sections, rather, for any incident. Mike, this is PSM, HAZCOM, new training, safety management system. It'll all work the same way. If you keep this in mind, it'll help you across the board. Okay. Also, you have 3 administrative positions that answer to the person as well, and rather the command staff. Excuse me, I got it backwards. So these are the section chiefs, right? And here's the command staff, which is, you have the liaison officer. They build relationships with banks, with restaurants. You know, if you are the planning chief and you tell somebody, hey, or logistics, you say, we need heavy equipment, me as the liaison will go build that relationship. Okay. So you build it with all vendors, all suppliers, the public, all stakeholders, period, government, everybody. Also, you have the safety officer and you have the public information officer. And if you look at this, it's kind of hard to tell, but if you look here, this is the incident commander. If you look at these 3 command positions, they technically do not answer to anyone. These 3 command positions, the liaison, safety officer, and public information officer, only or should, in theory, and remember, y'all, that's the one thing about this exam, follow theory, not practice, okay? In theory, they should only answer to the incident commander. And then these 4 positions, right? The planning chief, because the planning phase is always the most important phase, right? PDCA, Plan, Do, Check, Act, planning phase is always the most important. Excuse me, they're all important. It's always the biggest phase, the most cumbersome phase. Then the operations chief, logistics, and finance and admin, okay? Here, I have them noted for you again here. And like I said, it's highlighted because the planning chief, our planning is the largest phase or the most extensive phase, okay? Each only answer to the incident commander, just like the command staff. Each only answer to the commander, okay? In addition to that, you have what's called span of control right here, Carlos. Span of control, if y'all have ever noticed, most especially in construction. You find this a lot, right? You might only find one safety person. Your oil and gas, we've gotten spoiled that we see a safety person for every 25 to 30 employees, right? Now you see all these tech centers and distribution centers being built. You might have one safety person to every 100 or 250 employees. Go to solar. You might only have one or two safety people for 500 to 1,500 employees. Okay, safety is not a necessary position. It is a necessary task. Okay, and all frontline supervisors, all leadership and management, and all employees should be following safety protocols. So safety, we're there as a facilitator, but really we're not a mandatory position. It is a mandatory craft and task though. Okay? But span of control, if you think about a supervisor, right? Frontline supervisor, most supervisors have from 3 to 7 employees working for them. It's called the span of control, Mike. The easiest way to remember it is I do this, right? How many? 5, right? 5 plus or minus 2. So that's all right here. All I can hold in these arms right now is 3 to 7 employees, and that's my span of control. Forget what you see out there. You might see 10 or 12 or 15 employees underneath a frontline supervisor, okay? But the span of control is 3 to 7, okay? And ideal is 5, okay? You're going to see it in that document. Like I said, all these documents that we're talking about, I'm going to be making sure that I'm sharing all this with you, okay? So we're going to start winding this down, okay? I want to leave you with some tips here. These are tips, like I said, right? We offer BCSP prep courses, y'all. I'm going to send you the link to our website, right? I'm going to show it to you right now too, but I'm not spending time on our website. I showed you what we teach, and I told you where I'm going to send you some of the resources. The rest of it, you know, everybody's kind of find their own thing, right? Now, anybody who comes to us and preps to us, yes, we provide everything, okay? Here you go. Here's your test tips. First of all, define the question. When you read a question, might be a sentence, might be a whole passage. When it's a whole passage, Carlos, define what the actual question is. Oftentimes, it's the last line in the passage, okay? But take your time, read the question. Take your time, read the answers, okay? You remember playing pool after you've been having a few drinks, right? And all of a sudden you're shooting for the 8 ball and you hit the cue ball in, right? Or you hit the 8 ball in the wrong pocket, or you hit the 9 ball in. Why? Speed kills, okay? So what you do, right? People are excited. People have been having drinks, whatever. So here you go. Take your time, define the question, define all 4 answer selections. Also, be aware of absolutes in those answer selections. Things like this, Bruce, if you see words like never, none, always, all, are most likely not the answer. I'm not going to tell you they're never the answer, but they're most likely not the answer. Why? Because it's an absolute and it puts very small parameters within that answer. The more general the answer, the more likely the answer is correct. Also, that goes hand in hand to the next bullet point. Give the longest answer additional reading time, okay? Why? Because in order to justify an answer, you have to make it longer because you have to put the excuse in. I don't mean excuse like good or bad. I mean the excuse to excuse, right? I'm using the term excuse as in excuse this answer because of this addition. You see where I'm going with that? Okay. So oftentimes, like I said, the more general the answer or the longer the answer, give it a little bit more attention and see if it applies to you. Okay. Also, eliminate any obvious or wrong answers, right? Narrow it down to 2 or 3. If you know for a fact C is not the answer on this question, don't answer C. If you know for a fact something's not the answer, reduce it to 3 or 2 selections, okay? Also, try to tally your score. I'm not going to get into that right now, but what that is that, you know, when you're testing, right, you say, I know I answered this question correctly. I'm going to put it in one tally. I know I didn't answer this question, or I have no clue what it meant, so let me put it in, I just don't know. Or maybe I'm in a 50-50 somewhere. We're putting out a video on how to tally, and I'll make sure that you guys get it, okay? We may even do it live next week, but it will show you how to tally, because when you add up, remember this, right? We said you need 102 answers out of 175. But now, Mike, I'm gonna add the 25 back in, and I'm gonna say you have to get them all right, let's say, or almost. You need 100, if you're tallying, you need to basically, in your mind, be able to get close to 120 questions, right? Where you feel confident about, or at least the majority you feel confident about, and then you got some 50-50s, all right? And then you probably know you're close to the money, but you have to apply these testing principles. If you don't apply the testing principles, and then what are you counting? Okay, I heard this, anybody who listens to the Chemical Safety Board videos, right? I heard this a few times on there, and it makes total sense. It says it's not a matter of our judgment, it's a matter of our training. Okay, think about a confined space. If somebody goes down, we want to go in behind them. If somebody cuts themselves and starts bleeding all over the place and we don't know them, we want to help them, right? That's a matter of our judgment. Our matter of our training says you cannot go into that confined space unless you're trained for rescue and you have the right equipment. A matter of our training says you cannot help that person that's bleeding out, right, on the side of the street unless you have your own protective equipment or you know that person's medical history, okay? So it's not a matter of our judgment, it's a matter of our training, okay? And then, like I said, I'm going to be sharing some tallying information because that helps for all standardized tests. We kind of figured that out, and it's because of people like y'all, right? We joined in these webinars, or anybody who's come through our training before, COST, MCSST, 510, 500, or any of our leadership development or trainer programs. It's because of all the discussions that we've all had that I think make us stronger. Okay, so also reminder: don't sweat the math. Okay. Do not sweat the math. And I can't even tell y'all how many times I had to look at the word sweat to make sure I didn't write the word sweet. Okay. So always between that E and the A, always get me. Okay. So don't sweat the math. You have 4 tabs. You have all question tab on the exam, flag question tab, unanswered questions. And then you got a calculator tab. When we do this tallying, I will also talk about how to use your tabs within the testing system itself, okay? So this isn't for people in a prep course, Carlos. This is for anybody, whether y'all are in a prep course or not. Like I said, we're putting out all these informational videos. A lot of them will be on testing tips and testing assistance and how to do it. And then some content, because of course we still have our programs that we offer, okay, for sale. If you absolutely know the answer, make sure you answer that question right then and there. Don't hold it. If you know for a fact that's your answer, right? Answer it right away. If you're not sure, leave it unanswered, but don't flag it, okay? If you're not sure, just leave it unanswered. But if it's something that you're not familiar with, like the content, right? Or you don't understand the question at all, and then flag it. Because what will happen with this right here, Michael, and when I show you how to tally, I'm also going to show you how to box, okay? And I don't mean boxing ring box, right? I mean box, like put boxes where, let's put it like this. I'll put a bunch of different boxes because they give you dry erase graph paper. And Mike, I draw all these little boxes, and then all of a sudden, I'll see an electrical question, right? At question 8, and then one at 42, one at 88, one at 102, one at 171. I'll write them all the electricals in the number questions in a box. Then I got another box for crane and rigging, right? I got another box for heavy equipment, right? I have another box for HAZCOM. And the reason I do that is because a lot of times, if you look at those questions that are in that box, many times when they're framing up different scenarios, it'll kind of lead you and remind you what you needed to know. Okay, so that's something we kind of stumbled on. All right. So like I said, when we're going to do one strictly on flagging and tallying. Okay, and then I'll show you how to do it. It'll probably be like a 30-minute session in the next couple of weeks. Okay. Okay. If you absolutely don't know the answer, don't guess randomly. Eliminate any absolutes. Right. That should be any absolutes. I can't spell, obviously. Consider eliminating the shortest answer, okay, especially if it's an absolute, and pick a letter and stick with it. We always say, right, if you don't know the answer, see your way out of it, right? Or today's letters A, B, C, or D. Mike, I'll pick one letter, B. That's going to be my letter because your chances improve if you stick to one letter. However, if I have 4 selection of answers and I know for a fact it's not B, I'm going to go to an alternate letter. Okay, but if I don't know the answer and I just don't understand any of the answers at all, right? Or I don't understand B, but B is my letter, I'm going B all the way down. Or maybe another test, I would have done D all the way down. Okay, you reduce your chances, your odds of getting the answer correct by randomly picking. Okay, so stick to one letter, but eliminate absolutes. If you know it's not the answer, eliminate that, right? And then go to an alternate. And then on the right-hand side, always remember this: environmental, health, safety. I know a lot of y'all couldn't turn on your cameras, but do me a favor, hold your hand out like this, right? This is the environment. The environment's the whole world. It's all chemical for the most part, and then some biological, pandemics, okay? Now, Mike, it's health. It's the health of my work core, my facility. Think about how many billboards you see. Were you exposed to asbestos, right? Have you suffered from asbestosis or mesothelioma, right? It's a bunch. It's hundreds of people or thousands often. Okay. Look at Camp Lejeune right now, y'all. Like, look how many military veterans and then their families, right? Or service providers or service companies on that facility, right? Look how many of these veterans or their families were affected now by lead in the pipes at Camp Lejeune, and it's a class action. Why, Mike? It's health. Okay. It's really an environmental hazard, but it was affected to a certain amount of people. So it's affecting their health now. Okay. And then safety last. Why? Because when people fall, they fall one at a time. When people die in a confined space, it's 1, 2, or 3. Okay. But when somebody has respiratory, right? We have respiratory issue from silica, right? We have respiratory issue from asbestos or lead. Now it's health, because it's the whole workforce. Okay. Or if it's something like chemicals go into the water and they go to storm drainage, then they wind up in the river or the lake, right? And then it's environmental. Okay. So you always have to think biggest impact first, environmental, then health, then safety. Anybody who's stronger in safety on this line, and I'm stronger in safety than I am, my order is safety, then health, then environmental, Carlos. Okay. But you have to think the opposite for this exam. Can this impact the whole world? Can it impact that roach on the wall or that spider on the ground? We have to protect everyone, everything. It's called safety is paramount, and it's in their, and I'm going to put the link to it in their ethics. All right. Safety is paramount to what? To everything and everyone. Okay. So it's environmental, health, and safety. Also, never blame the employee. It's always a management level issue in the root cause analysis. It will always be a failure at the management level that we fix the system. Don't address the person, you address the problem, and we fix the problem and we move on. We fail to train our employees. We don't do enough hazard assessments. We saw the hazard and we didn't correct it, right? We saw the employee that chose not to wear their glasses over and over and over again, and we never told them anything. We never took any corrective action. Corrective action might be coaching, intervention, discipline, anything that you saw in the administrative controls. Okay. Also, management level deficiencies, right? That if you fix it, that's why in root cause, it shouldn't happen again. The employer's always responsible. Bruce, I'm skipping to the bottom right here. From employers always responsible, these are the synonyms that we often see: supervisor, competent person, qualified person, or employer. Okay. If anyone is expendable, Carlos, let me give you an example. These 3 people, right, and a safety person, and ask you who's expendable, because you got to do a reduction of force. The safety person's getting cut. Why? Because all of these rest of these people are the ones that have the duty to the employee to provide their health and safety, make sure they're doing their job correctly, and to implement training, okay, and day-to-day observation, okay? So we are there as coordinators, right? Because we're allowed to recognize, but we can't take corrective action. So we cannot be competent. We have the knowledge, we have the skill and the ability, but we do not have the authorization, which is the second part of competent person responsibility, okay? And then you have to know your BCSP ethics. You got to rat out other BCSP credential holders if they're lying, or if they affect the public, or if they say they have a certain capacity or capability that they don't. You always have to be truthful while speaking, and only when you're qualified and authorized to do so, right? You also have to protect everyone, Carlos, like I said, everyone, everything. It doesn't matter. A plant, an animal, people, the public, right? It doesn't matter, okay? Your enemy, anything, okay? And you have to fully disclose. So when you speak and you're qualified and authorized, you have to fully disclose everything, even if it negatively affects the client. Now, I know there's liability management there, right? And we all know that an attorney is going to say something different, right? So, but, and legal, so we're looking at liability and we're looking at testing, okay? So what I'm going to say is this: for exam purposes, hey, Erez, we're almost done with the CHST, and then we're going to jump on the ASP at 2:30, okay? Just so you're aware, right? So what happens is this, Carlos: forget, oh, my employer would not let me say that, right? Or my employer, the law firm's going to limit what we can say. Don't think legal, don't think practical, think theoretical, because that's what this exam is about. So Bruce, think about these 2 things, and this will get you many more answered questions correctly, right? First of all, what does the BCSP want me to do? Okay. Second, I'll give you 3 things. What does the BCSP want me to do, right? If it's one of my family members, friends, or other loved one in that position, what should the employer have done? And the last one is this, Mike, is if it is possible, not probable, if it is possible to do it like that, do it. Not probable. Okay, so let me give you an example right here, y'all, because we're about to close out in the next couple of minutes. Okay, I think I got one slide left, which is just my contact information. Let me give y'all some examples now. Okay, we have employees that are going to move. Carlos, let's say we're doing a pool right in Louisiana. It's so hot, we need pools right now, right? Okay, we're wrapping up a pool before summertime comes, and we have 200 bags of or 250 bags of 80-pound cement, sand, right, and gunite material, right? Okay, we have 250 bags, right? 80-pound bags. Can we all agree with this? That the OSHA recommended, it's not a standard, but the OSHA recommended weight limit for lifting is 50 pounds. Agreed? Okay, but the bags weigh 80 pounds, right, Carlos? So now let me give you an example. Which of these would be the correct answer? Do you tell the employee, okay, take your time and take as many breaks as you need, right? And let's get the 250 bags in the backyard. Do you say, I want 2 employees carrying the bags together, right? That way you, in theory, 40 pounds an employee, right? Because you have to infer a lot of information here. Third of all, you give them a wheelbarrow so they can put them in and wheel it to the back. And fourth is you rent a forklift so you can drive it from the back. Buy or rent a forklift and bring it to the back. Yep, there you go, Bruce. But normally we would think, give them a wheelbarrow, right? Or have them carry 2 at a time. And Bruce is spot on. Carlos, you have to bring a forklift. It's one job. It's going to cost me $2,500 to get a forklift out there, right? Or $1,000. Doesn't matter. Money is no object. Time is no object. If you got to wait 6 months for that forklift and it costs you $10,000 and you only charge us $10,000 to put in a pool, which we all know is $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, right? Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter that the employer won't make any money. Okay, it doesn't matter. Let me give you 2 more examples, right? I'm going to stay along that line, first of all, is I have employees that are breaking up concrete, right? And I turn around and say, okay, they're breaking up concrete, so what should I do? Right? Because I don't want Raynaud's, right? From heavy vibration, okay, which affects the capillaries and blood vessels, right? And we say, okay, we don't want an ergonomic injury, or we don't want Raynaud's, so what are we going to do? Well, get a better anti-vibrating jackhammer, put 2 or 3 or 4 employees and have them rotate and take turns doing it, right? Don't do the job at all, or rent or buy an excavator. The answer is going to be rent or buy an excavator, because the job has to be done. So elimination is not an option, right? A less vibrating jackhammer, that's probably what our employer is going to do, right? But it's not the right answer. And then rotation is not, because now you're just affecting more employees for shorter times. Okay. So Carlos, excavator exists, right? Like the one in your background in your picture. So therefore use it. Doesn't matter how much it costs. Doesn't matter how long it takes to get there. Doesn't matter that it's not accessible and they got to drop it in with a helicopter. None of that matters. Okay. Last one. Bruce, remember I said environmental health and safety, right? Any chemical goes into the water, goes into the air, number 1 hazard. Got to control it. Okay. Now let's go to health versus safety, Carlos, right? Let's say that same jackhammer. Okay. Now let's say employees are using a jackhammer. That was our only option here, right? Now they're jackhammering. Now I'm going to give you 4 types of PPE. Now I'm going to give you respirator, hearing protection, steel toes, and glasses, right? Which one's the most important? Okay. If many of us think steel toes or glasses, but we're wrong. It's safety. You have to think respiratory first. The number 1 hazard in any workplace. Think about the billboards, Bruce. It's always a respiratory hazard, right? Or it's either inhalation or ingestion, right? It's something that the employees consumed. Okay, so it's either inhalation or it's ingestion, Carlos. Okay, so the number 1. Think about this. Which one of those 4 are more likely? Can we agree it's either going to be the feet or the eyes? Right? They're more likely, right, Carlos? Okay. Which one's going? And this is what you want to think about. Which one's going to cost the most amount of money, and which one's going to affect their quality of life the most? It's going to be respiratory protection. This is why I lose an eye, I still have another. Even if I lose both eyes, all right, I can still be moved around, okay? If I lose a foot, broke a toe, right, crack all my metatarsals, which are the 5 long bones in the foot, amputate my leg, put me in crutches, put me in a wheelchair, okay? Lose my hearing or somewhat, give me hearing aids, totally lose it, well, respiratory protection, they will be on life-ending care for the rest of their life. Now we have asbestosis, silicosis, mesothelioma, right? We have COPD and on, asthma and on and on and on. You see what I'm saying, Mike? That's why like radiation hazards are huge because it's life-ending care for cancer, but they have to be treating the whole time. Respiratory protection, they have to be treating the whole time. So that's why it's health, not safety. Okay? We're so used to thinking somebody's going to the hospital today, Carlos. No, think about what's the billboard going to say, right? What, if it's my family or my loved one or my friend, right? Which one is going to be the worst one that I'm going to see them in and that I feel that I can't do anything about? Okay. And it's going to be always respiratory first. Then it's going to be probably ergonomic, then hearing. Okay, Bruce, it's almost always that order. Okay. So, and then, like I said, I'm going to go back here and this is where I'm going to close it out right here, right? These exams, they're theoretical, not practical. Meaning we're practitioners, right? Carlos, we practice this stuff, Raphael. Okay, it's not. It's theoretical. It's in a textbook. It's the way it's supposed to be done. And it's true. And I agree. It is the way it's supposed to be done, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's the way it's done. Okay. All right. So think, is it possible? And is it possible? Yes. Is it probable? Forget probability. Forget you work for a company, Carlos, or all the companies you and I have worked for. Forget anything about those companies. Money is no object. Time is no object. We need to protect employees, and that's it. Okay. And that's it, guys. So I think, as y'all can tell, look, we're right at an hour, I think, because it took us a few minutes to get started. It's a lot of information, right? And the thing is, all I can tell you is this. If you do it on your own, prep, give yourself enough time, spend the time. We're going to put out some more tips. But we're limited on what we can put out, right? If you have somebody else's prep program, hey, people ask me all the time. I get critiques about theirs. I get critiques about mine. All prep programs are good. There's not a prep program out there that I don't think is good. Okay. I think we all have our own value, right? And like I told you, Carlos, for me, it's content and application of that content, methodologies. Okay. And you need more, everybody. We all need more methodology and application than I think we do content, but you need it all. And take it seriously because it's $300. Think about it. It's $300 a pop every time we miss it, right? All y'all have my contact information up there. I'm leaving this up there for anybody else from YouTube or Zoom. If they want it, feel free to go to our website. We've got our prep class on there. Also, all the topics that I showed you on that list are on our website. Just feel free to cut and paste them if you want it. It's open source, right? I will put, Carlos, all these handouts that I showed you, I'm going to put them in a Dropbox probably tomorrow or Thursday for y'all. Anybody that's on the line, I'll send it to you in the next couple of days. Okay. Also, so anybody on the line, I'll send them to you in the next couple of days. And then also I'll put them in the YouTube channel, the direct link to OSHA's website or ANSI or whoever the resource belongs to. But a couple of them are ours. So, and then I'll put those on Dropbox, or we may even try to open up like a open source Dropbox where anybody can just go in and pull it off and they don't have to contact us about it. Okay. All right. Hey, y'all, let me ask you a question. It was a full hour, right? We hit it hard. Anything that y'all think that you need from me right now? Any questions about the content? Anything that I need to clarify for y'all up to this point? Like we said, don't forget that YouTube channel, right? Just Google Channel 4 Training. That's our handle on YouTube. We've got like another hour and something of tips already. And Carlos, we're putting out more. And a lot of y'all, we talk on a regular basis. Like I said, at some point I'm gonna say, no, dude, I need you to join somebody else's prep class or ours, or just go test, right? For all of y'all, right? But man, y'all know whatever we can try to do, we will try to do, So, all right. Anybody questions, thoughts, anything else?
Hey, Doug.
Ready to go grab a beer now and decompress after being bombarded for an hour? All right, good deal, guys. Thanks, Mike. Honestly, man, the only difference between this and the ASP, CHST, and the SMS, right? Anybody, just so to clarify, anybody on the line, the only difference between the CHST and the SMS is you have to have 10 years of experience instead of 3 for the SMS. Okay. Contracts are calling more for the CHST, but the SMS makes us more valuable. But I'm going to tell you this: if you prep for one, prep for the other. Just take them both back to back. Anybody without a bachelor's, anybody with an associate's in safety, right, or any bachelor's qualifies for the ASP, and anybody with any bachelor's qualifies for the CSP. Okay, and the experience is 1 year on the ASP, 4 years on the CSP. All right, I'll send out that as well. Okay, I'm going to send out a fact sheet on that. But here's the thing: test scores are subject to change. Okay, when they change them, so I tell everybody go to the At-A-Glance page on their website. That will be one of the links that's in there because that will clarify it better. Okay.